What is the scariest thing you've ever found in an Airbnb? I was staying at this Airbnb with my two friends. It was a bit out of the way, so we had to drive out there. The host left instructions to get into the property, but they also warned us not to go inside the actual house until they arrived, because they had to show us where everything was. We were like, okay, weird, sure. So we just sat outside for a little bit until they showed up, and the host family was super nice. They were giving us recommendations of things to do around the area, and they told us about the history of their home and all that stuff. After they left, we went inside. It was a big old farmhouse-style house. It was very rustic, like old wood paneling everywhere. And we noticed that almost every single outlet cover was missing from the walls. Like every room that we went into, it was just a couple of the outlets actually had covers. But most of them were just open holes in the wall with exposed wiring. And that was kind of creepy, but whatever. And we were just like, okay, we're going to go watch Netflix now. And then we noticed that one of the doors inside the house wasn't shut all the way. It was slightly ajar. Behind that door was what looked like a linen closet, just a normal linen closet. But when I opened it, there was nothing in here except for some hangers. And it didn't even have the rods to hang anything. It was just this dark hole that looked into complete blackness. And then I started hearing scratching noises from behind that closet. And I was like, that's pretty weird. And we just kind of ignored it and tried to chalk it up to like, oh, maybe it's just a squirrel or something. A few hours later, one of my friends wanted to take a nap, so she went upstairs to one of the bedrooms. While she was laying in bed trying to fall asleep, she started hearing what sounded like footsteps pacing back and forth right above her head. She was like, that's weird. So she got up and went to the window and looked out. And there was nothing outside the window. It was just a drop off to the ground. But then she started hearing footsteps in the room next to her. And then those footsteps started coming directly towards her room. And then she started hearing what sounded like whispers coming from under the floorboards. And she was like, well, that's creepy. I'm just going to go downstairs and watch TV. Meanwhile, I was watching TV downstairs when I heard what sounded like screams coming from upstairs. Big, guttural screams. I was like, that's weird. Maybe it's just a cat or something. And then the power started flickering.
Oh.
The lights started flashing. And then suddenly, all of the lights in the whole house turned off, and we were plunged into total darkness. My friend and I were like, hey, let's use our flashlights. And as soon as we turned our flashlights on, my other friend started screaming. She was like, guys, come look at this. She was pointing her flashlight under that same linen closet door and shining it down the hallway. And we were like, what the hell is that? Because in the flashlight beam, we could see the shadow of what looked like a person walking down the hallway. We were like, that is crazy. Let's just turn the lights back on. So we ran to the breaker box and flipped the switch to try to get the lights back on, but it didn't work. The lights stayed off. And then we heard footsteps coming down the stairs. I was like, should we hide? What should we do? My friend said, no, let's go outside. So we grabbed our phones and ran out of the house. We didn't really think that the host family would be back anytime soon, so we just decided to wait outside until the power came back on. We were standing on the porch trying to be brave, pretending like we were and totally scared out of our minds, when we started hearing what sounded like voices in the woods behind the house. And we were like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Then we started seeing what looked like shadowy figures running around in the trees. We were like, oh my God, are we being hunted by some sort of forest demon people? I literally started crying. I was like, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. My friends were trying to comfort me, but they were also freaking out. Then we started hearing what sounded like screams in the forest. I don't know if they were human screams or animal screams. It was too dark to see anything. We were sitting there for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. And then we heard a car. I was like, oh my God, the host family is back. Oh my God, they're going to think we're so weird. And we've been sitting out here this whole time. But it ended up being some other people who were staying at another Airbnb nearby. They must have seen us sitting on the porch because the girl rolled down her window and she was like, are you guys okay? You look really scared. And we were like, yeah, we're fine. Just the power's out and we're waiting for it to come back on. She was like, oh, cool. Well, if you need anything, you can come over to our place. We have some extra flashlights and stuff. And then she drove off. And we were like, yeah, thanks. After a minute or so, we decided that we couldn't sit on that porch anymore. It was too creepy. So we went inside to wait for the power to come back on. And as soon as we stepped back inside the house, the lights turned back on. We were like, weird, okay, well, let's just go watch TV. And then we started hearing what sounded like footsteps upstairs again. And we were like, oh my God, did she just bring back the ghost? Then we started hearing what sounded like whispering. And then one of us went upstairs to check it out, and there was nothing there. The rooms were empty. Nothing had been moved. Nothing had been touched. But then we started hearing what sounded like screams again, and we were like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So we ran to the bedroom that my friend was staying in, and we locked ourselves in there. And then we started hearing what sounded like scratching at the door and then footsteps in the hallway outside the room. Then we started hearing what sounded like whispers right outside the door. And we were like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. We were sitting there trying to be brave, but we were literally shaking and crying when we heard the doorknob start to turn. One of us started screaming, and we all huddled together in the corner of the room while we heard what sounded like footsteps in the room. And then we started hearing what sounded like whispering. And then suddenly the closet door opened, and we were like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then all three of us started screaming bloody murder. Then the closet door slammed shut, and the footsteps and the whispering stopped. And we were like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Then we heard the doorknob turn again, and we were like, oh my God, run. We all started screaming, and we ran out of the room and down the stairs and out of the house. We didn't go back inside that house. We slept in our car that night. In the morning after, of course not sleeping at all, we got up and went back inside the house to find the host family. And we told them everything that had happened. They were like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, yeah, that happens sometimes. And we were like, yeah, that's pretty helpful. Thank you. They were like, no, seriously. Yeah, that happens sometimes. You know, we've had a lot of reports of strange activity in that house. Some people have even said that they saw ghosts there. And we were like, oh, that's great. Thanks for letting us know. And then we left. It was the scariest experience of my life. Even years later, I still get freaked out thinking about it. If you like scary stories, stay tuned for more. Also, please subscribe.